Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this last one, I am taking a look at Riri Williams, otherwise known as Ironheart, as well as M'Baku. Unfortunately, there wasn't really too much to test for these characters. Ironheart is particularly focused on PvE and doesn't really have too much PvP value from what I saw, but you'll see that in the testing and the clips that follow. And for M'Baku, he doesn't really have an upgrade to Transcendence or Awakening or a potential T3, so until he gets that, he's mostly just relegated to being a support. Either way, I thought it would be interesting to see how M'Baku compares to Ironheart in World Boss Ultimate stages when they're both at T2. Even though the character will obviously be worse than Ironheart when Ironheart gets awakened and transcended, you can kind of get an idea of how they compare at the base level, meaning that when M'Baku does get a uniform or an upgrade to an Awakening or a T3, you can kind of get an idea of whether he'll be better, since you can see how he is without them. For both characters, I tested them without a damage proc. They have a CTP of Insight on them, which is basically like no build because one of the other characters on the team also has a CTP of Insight. For Ironheart, I was able to complete stage 99 of Thanos with about a minute and 30 seconds left, and then I did the same thing for stage 99 of Obsidian, but this time with 2 additional minutes left, or 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The obvious reason for this is because of the CC effects applying and the 50% all defense down from her 5th skill. What I found more interesting though was that when I tested M'Baku, he actually outperformed Ironheart on the Thanos stage and on the non-Thanos stage boss where the CC effects apply. Versus Thanos, he cleared the stage about 10 seconds faster. However, you can argue that I didn't really have the best team setup for Ironheart since she does have her own leadership and I used She-Hulks instead. However, the same can also be said for M'Baku to some degree because he also does have his own leadership as well. Granted, his leadership isn't as good as Ironheart's, but at the same time, Ironheart also has a uniform, whereas M'Baku doesn't have one at all. Versus Proxima, he was able to clear the stage about 30 seconds faster than Ironheart was able to clear Obsidian, and I realized that that's not really a one-to-one comparison since Obsidian is a little bit more tanky and has more health, but at the same time Proxima can be pretty annoying and move around a lot, avoiding a lot of damage too. Either way, the point is to give you some kind of frame of reference as to how the characters compare, and it seems that M'Baku is actually better than Ironheart even without a uniform at T2. Similar to Ironheart, he also does have all defense down, which helps him in this stage. He has it on the 3rd skill instead of the 5th skill, and on top of that he also has a damage buff on it, as well as a damage accumulation buff on the 5th skill, and a single skill damage proc on the 4th skill. The character's kit is actually pretty good, and will be one to watch out for when he gets an advancement. As for his build, a CTP of Insight is probably your best bet for now. However, if you do want to play him as a standalone character, probably in the future, I think that a CTP of Rage is his most ideal option, since he does have to delay cancel some skills. The rotation that I used is to do the 3rd and delay cancel after he stomps the ground, then you do the 5th skill and delay cancel then after he lands back on the ground after jumping, and then you do the 4th skill, which is the one that you want to basically stay in because it has a single skill damage proc on it. By the way, for anyone wondering how Shuri compares to these two, she's about anywhere from 10 to 25 seconds ahead of them, at least at T2. Looking back at Ironheart though, with the Awakening skill, she is about 1 minute and 10 seconds faster on the Thanos stage, and roughly around 30 seconds faster on the Obsidian stage. However, on those stages, the clear time isn't really an accurate representation of the improvement, which is the reason why I always take them into World Boss Legend. Interestingly enough, even though Ironheart didn't perform as well as Shuri in the World Boss Ultimate stages, when she got her Awakening or Transcendence, she actually started performing better than Shuri in the World Boss Legend stages. Mind you, I noticed that this was only about a 5 to 10 second improvement, but the fact that she does better than Shuri and Shuri does so well is kind of a testament to the character's performance. I'm not really sure why she starts outperforming Shuri by a little bit in World Boss Legend compared to World Boss Ultimate, but if I had to guess, it would probably be from the combination of different offensive effects that she has, including the leadership tag, the chain hit damage, the boss damage, and the ignore dodge, coupled with the fact that she gets 70% ignore dodge from the awakening skill, totaling 95% ignore dodge, which likely plays a bigger factor in the higher stages of World Boss Legend, which ultimately is the reason why she probably performs a little bit better than Shuri because of that. Unfortunately, I didn't really test the character with a damage proc, so you won't be able to see her performance on the higher stages, but on stage 9 I was able to clear it with about 2 minutes and 50 seconds remaining roughly, which was about 2 minutes and 40-ish seconds with Shuri. Because Ironheart didn't do as well in World Boss Ultimate as Shuri, by the time that I took her into World Boss Legend, I was actually quite surprised that she could do stage 29 of Knull without a damage proc, and the fact that she could do it faster than Shuri by about 10 seconds, finishing with close to 55 seconds remaining, whereas Shuri finished with close to 45 seconds remaining. I tried to push the character to an even higher stage, going to 34 of Knull. However, she didn't really have the damage to complete the first phase in under 2 minutes, falling short by about 20 seconds. However, if I built her a little bit better, I think that she still might have been able to clear this with no damage proc. I think that's actually quite good, and the character is sort of on par with Kamala Khan and Shuri in terms of her performance in World Boss Legend at least, and seems to have fallen a little bit under people's radar. Just to be sure that the character was good in PvE across multiple modes, I also took her into a giant boss raid, and again, with no damage proc, she was technically able to beat this fight since I was able to complete the first phase in under 2 minutes, which is kind of the signifier that the character can either complete the Dormammu giant boss raid or not. Regarding her build and the rotation, if you want to use her as a standalone character, a CTP of Rage is really your best option. She has a lot of skills that have to be delay cancelled, and her overall rotation isn't really too proc friendly. The one that I went with is to use the third skill and delay cancel it after she goes up in the sky. Then you follow up with the fifth skill and you delay cancel it after the third hit. So she'll do a blast, and then a kind of long lasting blast. You can cancel it after this part since there'll be lingering damage effects going on. And then you just simply transition into the fourth skill. When you have your awakening skill available, you simply use that in the beginning and insta-cancel it and then follow up with the rotation, which again is 3 delay cancel, 5 delay cancel, 4. Though I mentioned that the character seemed to be a bit better than Shuri in World Boss Legend, in Alliance Battle Extreme, although she did still do pretty well. She scored about 8.5 million for me without a damage proc, and Shuri scored about 9 million or a bit over that with a damage proc. That means that the characters are likely on par there too. However, the one downside is that Ironheart doesn't really have the CC effects needed to do the roar cancelling. She only really has paralysis, meaning that you'll likely have to switch to another character and could potentially end up scoring less. Besides this, the character doesn't necessarily cover a particular day better than other available characters. For the human blast restrictions, there are better options that can go to T4 and score higher than her, such as Iron Man or Blue Dragon, and for days where it's just female human, you have a ton of other options. On the PvP side, even though the character has guard break immunity built in or natively, she doesn't really have too much else going for her across her skills 1 through 5. Most of her skills are quite slow and clunky, and she typically ends up going into her third skill, which is a long, slow animation, but does have an iframe, which is good, but then usually follows up with the fourth skill, which is basically just her standing there using a beam attack and leaves her open to die pretty easily. If you really want to use her for PvP, I'd say that a CTP of Destruction is likely your best option for taking out meta characters. However, if you just want to make her annoying and decent versus non-meta characters or ones that are weaker, then probably a CTP of Transcendence is a good option for that. One of the interesting things for Alliance Conquest is that even though the character isn't really that good for PvP, you can use her with other characters that have the machine tag, since she has it as well and can benefit off of them. At the same time, her leadership is kind of weird because it only increases energy damage, whereas the machine tagged characters that support her are usually physical types like War Machine and Hulkbuster. Funny enough, even though I was using War Machine as a support for Ironheart, it turned out that I was using Ironheart as a support for War Machine since he was doing most of the work in those fights. You can see that better in this Defenders fight where she ends up dying first, and War Machine can't really cope because he deals physical damage and they reflect it back. If they made her leadership apply all damage to blast types, it would work much better with War Machine, or better yet, if they made it actually increase machine tags in general, it would actually be ideal for a lot of characters and team combinations. So as you can see from these clips and the testing, Ironheart is actually a little bit better than Shuri when she's awakened. And at T2, M'Baku is better than Ironheart. So when he gets an awakening or transcendence, he could potentially be better than both of them. But that said, Shuri is still the most value overall because she provides a support to all characters, not just being limited to blast energy types, and because she can be taken to T3, she has the ability to provide that support passive in higher level content, whereas M'Baku is kept from doing that. If you want another standalone and support character, then I would probably recommend picking up Ironheart for Black Friday. I wouldn't say that there is a rush to pick her up now, since she is kind of a specific support similar to how Sif provides the same benefits to combat types. That's pretty much it for the testing for this update. I'm hoping that for the future ones they fix Hulk's T4 skill and at least find a middle ground for the effect or buff that it provides. They also mentioned that Black Bolt's T4 effect was kind of underperforming, or at least people reported that, so hopefully they'll make that go back to where it was before. I actually also noticed that Black Bolt's T3 skill iframe ignores now, whereas it previously didn't, or at least I noticed that it did, so if anyone can confirm that in the comments, that would be great. Lastly, I noticed that Cap's T4 got teased, which I really don't know what they're doing, because if you're gonna have a Black Panther update and the character has been so mediocre for so long, this would be the perfect time to upgrade not only his uniform, but give him an artifact and the new T4 skill. If they don't do it now, my guess is that they probably do it for the DVD or digital release of the Wakanda Forever movie, similar to how they didn't release any buffs for the villains in the Spider-Man No Way Home movie, but they did later on when it was out of theaters. But yeah, hopefully they get that figured out, because that's honestly not really that great when the community expects something and gets something else. If you're still watching this point, make sure you like and subscribe and share the video to help other people out and help me out. As always, I appreciate you taking the time to watch these, but the video is now over.